What we think of as the psychological present, what we experience as now, is thought to be a window of about 2 to 3 seconds in duration. So in a typical waking day for a human being, assuming you get 8 hours of sleep a night, which I know many of you probably don't, that's about 20,000 nows in a given day, most of which are completely forgotten. Now, if you think back through what happened to you earlier in the day today, or yesterday, or the day before, you realize that as you search your memory for details, what you don't remember is every detail of every experience. What you remember are bits and gists of what you experienced. And that's not a bug in your memory, that's a feature. There would be no evolutionary advantage to you remembering all of the details of what you experience every day. So the question has to come up, what would motivate your brain? What would signal the brain that this thing that you're trying to remember is something that it should retain? And that's the thing that I want to talk about in the few minutes I have with you today. I want to start by talking about computer memory, which many people use as sort of a metaphor for organic memories. When you're working at your computer and you hit the save command, what the computer does, it looks for a blank space on the hard drive or the flash drive. It writes what you saved, and by writes, I mean a lot of binary switches flip from 1 to 0 or to 0 to 1 in some configuration that represents what you saved. Your computer puts an address on it with the idea in mind that later in the day, later in the week, later in the year, barring some malfunction or some physical catastrophe to your computer, you can click on the icon for what you saved. The computer will go find the address on the drive, it will read off what's there, and what you saved will be exactly the way it was when you put it there. A couple of other features. Whatever's on the drive at the time that you saved that thing that you saved will have no effect on what you saved. And what you put on the drive subsequent to that saved event will have no effect on the thing that you saved. Now, I take all the time to say that about computers to say that organic brains don't work anything like that. Our brains, which aren't like computers, are made up of 86 billion, give or take, neurons, and the configurations, the networks, the constellations of neurons that work together are how memories are represented in the brain. Now, when you save something on a computer memory, nothing physical about the drive changes. Electrons move through gates and open and close gates, but that's about it. When you form a memory in an organic brain, including our brains, brains have to actually grow new stuff. Genes have to make proteins and things have to change in a physical way. Now that takes time and effort and energy. Now that asks the question, when you're trying to learn something in school, when you're sitting in a class, much like you're doing right now, or you're studying, or you're reading, what signals your brain that this is something that I should recall? And the short answer is not what you're doing right now. Because none of you right now is busy enough for your brain to be actually making a persistent memory of what you're experiencing. So how do those memories take place? Well, anyone who's ever tried to solve a problem or write a good sentence or construct a good paragraph or to work at a video game that's challenging in whatever way has found that one of the things that our brains try to do throughout our lives, throughout every day, is to predict what's about to happen. So the better our brains are in predicting what's about to happen, the better we are at navigating the world around us. And again, there's an evolutionary advantage to that. But often, when we're trying to solve a problem or do a particular task, we intend for something to happen, we want something to happen, or we expect something to happen, and it doesn't happen. And that dissonance, that little frustration that you feel like, that little moment, that's what signals the brain that this is something that's important enough to save. It's the effort, it's the confusion, it's the frustration that starts the process of memory formation. And continuing to work through the confusion, continuing to expend effort to solve the problem, complete the task, whatever it happens to be, that's what actually forms a persistent memory in the brain. So unlike computers, where you can just put something in there, expect it to stay and get it when you want it, organic brains, the brains that all of us have in our heads, require effortful resolution of problems and confusions to actually form a memory. So one of the themes that you'll be hearing not only today during this talk, but also throughout the rest of your time at the University of Texas is putting yourselves in situations that are a little bit confusing, a little bit uncomfortable, a little bit effortful. Those situations are the situations in which you'll learn best.